Welcome to Real Talk episode 27. I am Brian Rose and we are here in the actual London Real Studios in Shoreditch in East London, but this isn't the normal London Real episode. This is Real Talk where I answer your questions. 30 minutes. We are live here. This is not made up. I got Facebook Live over here if you want to ask me questions in real time. And you know, this is usually a format where I get to sit down either with a special guest like Max Kaiser or Chris Ducker, people like that, or I just answer your questions about fatherhood, about challenges, about what it's like to build a media business. But you know, tonight's been a kind of a rough week for us here at London Real, and we thought we would really dedicate this episode to a gentleman that was supposed to be sitting in this chair 48 hours from now, and that is Mr. Kimbo Slice. He was a mixed martial arts fighter and was really an internet sensation before his formal career as a fighter. And most likely you have seen one of his videos. I want to play a short clip in just a little bit. But Kimbo was someone that really was a superstar before he ever got into the cage. And that made him so unique because he was made famous on these real bare-knuckle backyard brawls that he fought in South Florida. He was a big, scary-looking beast of a man. But from everyone that I know, he was also a very kind, gentle, hardworking family man. And I know people that trained with him. I trained with a mixed martial arts fighter named Boss Rutan out in Los Angeles about 8 years ago. And I was really honored to have a private session with Boss. And he is the one that taught jiu-jitsu to Kimbo Slice. And he said, Brian, he's like, everyone makes these assumptions about Kimbo because, you know, he used to drive Humvees and make, you know, $10,000 payoffs from, you know, 30 seconds in a backyard brawl, and he'd wear gold chains and have gold teeth. But he said he was a hardworking guy, the nicest guy, the most respectful guy you'd ever meet, which is true about most fighters that most people don't know. But when you meet fighters, they're actually some of the best people in the world. I always say the more gentle the handshake, the tougher the guy. And every martial arts fighter I've ever shook hands with, they're just the gentlest, nicest people when you're not fighting them. And so we were super excited to have Kimbo here on Friday, and I'll go into more details on that. But if you don't know who Kimbo Slice is, here's a little snippet from one of his fights. This has probably happened in the early 2000s, and this was put on internet, on YouTube, and really blew up.
Good, Bird! Good, Bird! Finish that! Hey, Bird. Get already. Come on, hit me! That's it! That's all you got! That's all you got, nigga! It's over! Come on! Come on! Come on! Finish it, Bird! Come on! Finish that shit! Stop playing, nigga! Finish that! Finish it! What's up?
Man, let me get my bread. Get my bread. What?
You ain't want to see none of that.
All day.
I ain't never gonna. Now, some of you might see that and say, okay, that's a little rough, Brian, it's a little violent. I admire the boxing technique. You know, he has his hands up, a lot of great movement at the waist, very Mike Tyson-esque. And, you know, it's just combat at the end of the day, and both men had agreed to be there. I think they had a big a lump sum on that as well. But, you know, that's when we first found out about Kimbo, and there's another probably 5 or 10 videos of him. There's even a famous video of him fighting, I think, a Chicago police officer. His name escapes me. If you know it, put it in the chat. And it's this long 20-minute brawl. And if you're a fan of mixed martial arts, then you just always saw something beautiful about what Kimbo was doing. And so when he went ahead and went into MMA, it was a really big deal. And he really sold the fight before it happened. And actually, entire organizations were built on this. And one of his big fights in an organization called Elite XC, I believe was in 2007, was against James the Colossus Thompson, who's been a guest on London Real, who actually interviewed Howard Marks with me. May he rest in peace as well. And I love James, and funny enough, I had James here in the studio about 4 weeks ago to talk about his upcoming fight with Kimbo. But here is a little excerpt from the Kimbo Slice James Thompson fight from 2007. Now, that just shows some of the highlight punches, but actually James Thompson had Kimbo down on the ground for a whole round, and the referee actually stopped that because of the blood on his ear, which actually isn't a reason to stop a fight. And there was a lot of controversy behind this loss, and it really sent James Colossus into a real spiral downwards. He got very depressed, went back to his gambling addiction, a lot of problems. And James is a really amazing guy, really a warm, a great fighter, very intelligent guy as well, a great blogger. And I had him in here 4 weeks ago because he was finally going to get this rematch with Kimbo Slice. Who would have figured 9 years later they were going to meet in London at the O2 Arena? And I've never seen James happier. When he was on my show 3 years ago, all we talked about was Kimbo Slice, because he feels like he was robbed, and he thinks the promoter of that organization had something to do with the fight stopping, and it was just a lot of controversy. And so that was the Kimbo Slice story. Now, some of you remember from there, he actually went and joined The Ultimate Fighter, which was the UFC reality show. And when Kimbo walked in that season, I still remember it, it was crazy. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, because Kimbo was such a huge media draw on his own. That everyone was shocked, and a lot of people were in the house with him, including Brendan Schaub, who later became a very big heavyweight fighter and who's now doing the Fighter and the Kid podcast with Brian Callen, who's been on London Real, comedian, good friend of Joe Rogan. So there's all these people that we all kind of know Kimbo. And, Kimbo was not, funny enough, the most successful fighter in the UFC. He never really got his ground game. He's a great striker, as you can see, but he really wasn't good at takedown defense. And once you got him on the ground, even though he trained with Bas Rutten, I know he hated jiu-jitsu. And so he kind of went dormant for a while, but lately, we've really seen Kimbo come back. He had a big fight against a guy named Dada 5000 about 3 or 4 months ago at Bellator, and now he was set to come here in London. And so there was so much anticipation. James Thompson talked about Kimbo as a fighter as well. And before I get into that a little bit more, here's a small excerpt. Again, no one's seen this yet, of James Thompson talking about Kimbo Slice. Again, this was filmed before we heard the news about Kimbo, and check it out.
2, 3, 4 million people having a conversation about my little one black ass in my last fight, so that's amazing.
I remember Kimbo in the backyard brawls in some swamp town, right, in South Florida.
A big black guy in a beard smashing people at barbecues was just his path.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great idea. I think he was the first person to get 1 million views on YouTube. I wish I would have thought about it. I was surprised to get the fight. That was a great fight for me, an MMA fighter. He felt very strong. That's what I remember about him.
So the third round's happening, and one of your ears has got a big pool of blood, and then all of a sudden the ear explodes. The referee stops the fight, completely stops it.
I hold nothing against Kimbo. It was just another day, and that's all it is. Don't get caught up in all the bullshit and tinsel and everything, the sparkly shit. No, you can do it. Go in and do it.